Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here with us tonight. And you can all grab a seat, but also please continue to support this wonderful establishment and get your drinks. You can get your alcoholic drinks, you can get your non-alcoholic drinks. They've got a great mocktail menu and teas and all sorts of wonderful things. So we're at Brockton Writer Series. In case you don't know where you are, we're at Brockton Writer Series. Okay. So we here at Brockton wish to acknowledge that we do our work on the land of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, Huron-Wendat, and Mississaugas of the New Credit, and that settlers such as myself have a requirement and obligation to acknowledge the ways that our ancestors have contributed to genocide, to colonization, to oppression, with both our silences and our actions, and then to take action to combat those things. And so we're hoping that all of you takes those things seriously as well and understands that a land acknowledgement is not just words that you say when you have a microphone, but it's an opportunity to exhort people to take action, whatever that looks like for you. So it might mean writing your elected officials about boil water advisories, or about missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit people, or about implementing the recommendations of the Truth and Reconciliation Project, or about giving some goddamn crown land back. When you're speaking these days about colonization and genocide, you kind of have to also acknowledge the one that's happening right now as we speak horrifically in Palestine. And we can also do things about that. The ICJ, the International Court of Justice, the UN, Amnesty International, and many, many countries of the world have decried the atrocities happening there and are exerting pressure. Here in North America, our governments are not. And so it's incumbent on us to, again, email our politicians, call our politicians, mail our politicians, show up to protests and be loud, because we're responsible for watching this happen and not doing anything if we don't do anything. We also like to acknowledge that Black Lives Matter, and there is no place for racism at Brockton Writer Series. We're in Glad Day Bookshop, ideally in Toronto, ideally in the literary community at large. We also don't support any other forms of oppression. This is a queer space. No homophobia, biphobia, or transphobia is welcome here. And this is all really important core values of Brockton Writer Series. And I think I hit all of those. Yeah, thank you very much for all of us here with us today in person, and for those of us online on YouTube. Today's lineup will include a guest speaker and then 4 readers. And after the guest speaker, there will be a Q&A. And then after 4 readers, there will be a Q&A for all of them. And they all have, Kirby, Hannah, Kevin, all have books here to sell. So feel free to go up and be like, hey, I want to buy your book if you really like their reading, or if you don't like the reading. Yeah. And oh well, yeah, I'm awkward. It's okay. If you don't like, maybe a friend of yours will, buy a gift. You're gonna love them all, though. They're all brilliant. I programmed them, so they're all wonderful. If you have questions and you're on YouTube, please type them in the chat box as they occur to you. There's a bit of a delay, so it will help us out if you type your questions in the chat box as you think of them, and we will read them out. And now I am going to hand this over to my wonderful co-host, Helen. Woo.
All right, thanks, Marianne. So just a little bit of background about Brockton Writer Series. In case you don't know, Brockton Writer Series was founded in November 2009, which means that we've been active in the Toronto literary scene for over a decade. That's awesome. Our nimble Brockton volunteers are Nancy K. Clark right in front of me, Dorianne Emerton, who you just heard, Faye Dong, who's doing all of our tech tonight, and I'm Aylin Crowley. If you're interested in joining this amazing team and getting some volunteer experience yourself, please talk to us after the reading tonight because we would love to hear from you and we also would really benefit from having a few extra volunteers on the team. And we really mean this. So if you have spare time, please talk to us. If you don't have spare time, please talk to us. We would also just like to acknowledge with deep thanks the continued support of the Ontario Arts Council who make this series possible. And finally, our sincere thanks to all of you who are here both in person and online. We're just so glad that there are people coming out to Brockton Writer Series. So now we're going to go on to our guest speaker. Tonight we have Kirby. Kirby's work includes She, Last Licks, Behold, a stage adaptation of Poetry is Queer, and This Is Where I Get Off. I said that very fast because they're demonstrating.
It's all good.
Their column, The First Time, is also a regular feature at Send My Love to Anyone, and they are the publisher at Night Board Book. Please welcome Kirby.
Thank you so much. It's really lovely to be here. What a great series. Congrats on your over a decade, which is crazy good. That is something to be able to celebrate, especially with reading series. And it's lovely to be in a gay space. Hi, queers. Absolutely, absolutely. But I think if you're here, you're at least bound. And I love the gay balls on the ceiling. They're lovely and colorful. I mean, I remember when Glad Day used to be on Yonge Street. And you couldn't make it up the steps without being picked up either on the way up or on the way down. And that was a lot more fun, let me tell you. Or well, let's just say it was fun. I'm not gonna say more fun because we're gonna have fun tonight. It kind of, so that at that period, that's covered in my lovely little book called This Is Where I Get Off, which is also known as my urinal book. And it's virtually, this is where I get off. I don't have a Glad Day story though, but what's crazy is when I got here, I looked at there's a used book section back here, which I don't know about you, but I go directly to where the used books are. And I happened to find two early books that I'm in. One is called Queries. It was this first anthology that was put out by Dennis Denishoff. Remember Dennis Denishoff? He's still around. Anyway, I have a little story in here called Crazy, which is really fun. And then because she's out crazy for something new. My romantic Cal bitch. And then this is Queer View Mirror that Jim Johnstone put out. I think those are both Arsenal Pulp. Arsenal Pulp, which has been the vanguard of queer publishing for many, many years. Brian Land's there. And this has a piece in it called Cockaholic, which is very fun. But then here's the other crazy thing, and this is why you wanted to get here before me. Because I found this really, really rare book edited by Dennis Cooper called Discontents, which is just fucking killer. And so that's going on. And I'm here to talk a bit about how to get your work out in the world. Because how many here are still looking to get published? Okay, and how many here have been published? Okay, so we've got that spread too. And I'm a publisher. I publish at Nightwork Book. We publish poetry. We've been doing it since 2016. And I'm always curious what the stoppers are. Like what's stopping you or keeping you from having something published or something in print? And does anybody have off the cuff stoppers other than rejection notices?
That would be the big one.
It can certainly be a big one. Anything else that you're like sitting on your work? Yeah.
I didn't think that it was appropriate for the time. I wrote it during the pandemic and stuff happened.
Well, life does continue, and I think we're gonna have a deluge of pandemic work still coming out. I mean, only now we're still getting really new work on AIDS and AIDS organizations and what we live through. So that, but please don't let that be a deterrent. They don't, it doesn't have to be like current, like it just came out of my ass today. What else? Anything else? Well, I've been told that one of the biggest stoppers is, what is my family going to say?
Oh, yeah.
What is my family going to think about this? And I'm going to read a little section that addresses this. And actually, it's kind of funny because it happened, I was reading down the street at, they used to have readings at Woody's. At Salem. I know, it's crazy how things shift. 1 second, darling, she's finding her place here. My mom plans a visit around the same time I'm slated to read launch from a new anthology called Quickies. And we run into its editor, Jim Johnstone, not the editor of this book, which is also Jim Johnstone. And he looks incredulously, he goes, Kirby, is this your mother? And I'm just incredulous, are you attending Kirby's reading tonight? And not missing a beat, what's the big deal? We're all adults here. God love her, Suzanne, transitioning from being the mother who is never going to accept this to we're all adults here. Yes, in many ways, I'm fortunate. I didn't get tossed out on the streets or beaten or disowned. My parents ended up loving, wanting me still. The important thing that happened between us is that I didn't decide ahead of time what, if anything, was going to be okay with them. Hell, I assumed the opposite. I was prepared to change my last name, move out, live my life entirely separately. I even wanted my remains, what was to be taken to the only place I knew that I was not a criminal under the law. At that time, it was Denmark. I decided I wasn't going to allow my life or my love to be treated as anything less than equal. This was my line in the sand. Meet me there or not. Hell, this is Jim, the editor. Hell, my mom doesn't even know this book exists, the book we were launching that night. Also, I decided not to present my life as an issue, but a given. Straight people don't think about it. I mean themselves as straight. Much like white people don't think about their whiteness. They are unencumbered, like the rest of their world. I'm sorry, who am I straight acting for? Do you think what I want is mere acceptance? She doesn't play small. Plus, both of my parents knew long before I mentioned it in the bathroom when my mom was straightening my 15-year-old hair, my curls. Mom, I think I'm homosexual and would like to see a therapist. Okay, I'll speak to your father. And while I was super pissed that they didn't say or ask or do anything earlier that may or may not have spared me significant years of self-hatred, now knowing that piece of information is revelatory. They didn't admonish me, but encouraged me in the things that held interest. Specifically, my mom would drop me off every Saturday at the Toledo Museum of Art. I was in Toledo, Ohio, where I took music appreciation classes and discovered every nook and cranny the glorious space opened up for me. And Wally, my dad Wally, he did two things that were above and beyond. He took me to my weekly clarinet practice and sat outside to hear me play, knowing when I didn't practice enough and always encouraging. Then on weekends, he would golf with my older brother in the mornings and make it home in time to take me to a matinee of my choosing. Such love. I think I grew up with my dad. When he showed interest in me, I didn't know how to enter or speak to him about his life until close to his death. when cancer pretty much had taken over before anything, before he had anything checked. Because at that time, he was in the US, there was no, he just couldn't swallow before he would go see a doctor and pay for a doctor. So Wally waited until his business went bankrupt. And on a visit home, he was in the garage, cleaning up in the garage. He goes, "Hell, Kirby, I'd sooner have AIDS than go through what I'm going through." And though I know he couldn't have known, I understood it was failure, and he never would recover from it. It was Wally alone who said, "We better start listening to Kirby or we're going to lose him." That says more about that man than anything else. Don't decide for your parents, for others, based upon your own shame. Never place yourself as an obstacle or anything other than the beauty that is yours. By doing so, you invite others to do likewise and lose those you're going to lose anyway. It's you I care about, not them. What would be the quality of our meeting if I was only the one deciding for both of us if I was worthy or not? Give me the goods, someone to be met, fuck it up, make a mess, brilliantly. Please don't get it right. Show me the gay, and I'll shine right back at you. That's from my purple love chunk. My manifesto called Poetry is Queer. This I refer to as the Queer Rolling Stones tongue. It's actually a wonderful piece by artist Philip Hare. He was in Toronto for many, many years and now lives with his partner on the East Coast. And we've collaborated so long, so often. There's something I wanted to read. I'm working on my new book. It's called Fairyland. It's coming, to sign the contract, coming out in 2026. We'll talk more about that, signing business, whatever. But the epigraph from that book is by Simone Weil. Attention is the rarest and purest form of generosity. And that's why I've come tonight, because I know what it means to be kind, to be given attention. It's so vital and so important. And that's why I'm so grateful to Brockton Writers for creating a space for that to happen. Wait 1 second. I'm going to find my place again because I'm having a senior's moment. I'm newly a senior. Isn't it sweet? I never expected to be here. It's kind of nice. It really is. So one of the other reasons that stop people from putting their work out, and for me, I hear it as the #1 reason, is they wonder if it's any good. Would you please read for this and tell me if it's any good? How many have said that? Well, darlings, having been a jurist on many grant boards, having read the slush pile of over 300 entries for a major publication, having to go through even what's on these shelves, guess what? It doesn't have to be good. In fact, I would like to be free to consider that at least 95% of it is crap. Because how else are all these books out in the world? There's a lot of crap. There's 44 titles that are named on the CBC list of poetry this fall. And that's just what made the CBC list, which is still a mystery how that happens. But I do know this. If I were ever to make a CBC list, I would wonder what I'm doing wrong. Because you have to decide who you are and why you're doing this, why you want to have something published, why you want to, what makes it matter to you, what's important. Is it having a name? Is it being recognized? Is it just wanting the warm fuzzy feelings? Oh my God, it's my book. Okay, those are all valid reasons. I'm not belittling or putting down any of that, but it's really important to know what it is that you're set out to do, because the only success there is doing what it is you set out to do. That's it. My big success story, as I've said in Poetry is Queer, is I never managed to kill my fairy. And my fairy is still lit. My fairy is the pen that writes Poetry is Queer. My fairy is the queer that writes she. And she is Joyce pronoun, and look, oh my goodness. Don't you, that is one of my favorite colors. It's a lip color called Smooth Sailing. Put out by Dior. Okay. So one of the other stoppers and reasons why people don't have something to hand you when I say, do you have any work? Do you have anything that I can see? I mean, a lot of it's online, but part of it is because they have a solid fixed idea of what they think it should be ahead of time. Whether it should be a contract from a Random House or Coach House or Nancy, or one of your, so you're always allowed your hit list. Of course, everybody wants to be, poets want to be put out on Wave Books or on Copper Canyon in the States, all that. I mean, personally, regardless of who your publisher is, you're going to be doing all the work anyway. Okay, so it really doesn't matter, because if you're not out there doing the work, believe me, the book's dead on arrival. And there isn't a publisher right now who's not checking out your social media, who's not wondering how many likes you have or how many followers, all that stuff, because they want to already know there's kind of a chance of a guaranteed market of this many numbers, because that's all it's become, is a numbers game. We've gone from readings to events. We've gone from art exhibition to dancing our tits off at the Walk of Culture. Okay, it's either a go-to event in Toronto or it's falling off the plate. So there's not much we can do about that. That's sort of how it's unfortunately part of the mentality of Toronto. How many are here? How many live here in Toronto? You out and why? No, I'm actually, and you can afford it? Is everybody able to afford to live here? Do we have the same number of hands? Kind of, sort of. Okay. I would like to suggest to you, thinking of this fixed idea of how it's supposed to happen, how you think it should happen, I would like to suggest to you to seriously consider leaving Toronto. Toronto's a black hole right now. Nobody wants to fucking be here. It's hard to make anything work. That's why, congratulations, 10 years here. It's a rarity, okay? Whereas there is an artist couple that had graduated from OCAD, and what they did was they found in the middle of fucking nowhere in Saskatchewan, a storefront that they could rent for $200 a month that they could also live in. And they made that a stop across the country for artists to go to, and for 10 years created a center where they got all the grant money because no one was in fucking Saskatchewan. So so there's not the same competition that you have here. And they made a name for themselves, and now they can do anything they fucking want. Hello? The Arts Center, there's a beautiful queer art space in London, Ontario called Good Sport. And they're kicking it and they're making it, oh my God, it warms my heart because it's happening. And it doesn't have to happen here. I've never been Toronto-centric. I'm really fortunate. I live in a co-op, my rent's good income. It's the only way I can stay here. Thank God I got friends that are saying, oh, Kirby, please come. I got a room for you on the East Coast. I'd love to spend the rest of my life on a porch. But right now, the cheapest place I could live is in Toronto because I've been here for 40 years, 40 plus years and made it work. But it's not. It's not kind of like when Patty Smith was at the AGO and somebody said, oh, should we move to New York? She goes, are you out of your fucking mind? Go to Detroit, where artists are creating new, where you can afford to live and be an artist. And so if you're not going to do that, my strong suggestion is sign up to every fucking co-op in this city. The Co-op Federation of Toronto. It might take 10 years, then still say it's going to take 10 to 12 years. But guess what? 10 to 12 years from now, you have that choice to take that space. So please consider that option as well. I don't know anybody else that's not really making it in publishing or as an artist that doesn't have some line of support. I'm not talking about grant money. I'm talking about a partner, a benefactor. Yeah. So you might want to envision what life would be like outside of this city, because honest to God, my recent experience is I don't go out a lot. I don't find the city to be very kind anymore. And I'm older and a little more sensitive to it. So I could be speaking from that place as well, who knows. But the other thing is, I'll never forget, oh, by the way, I cleaned up my drawers today because I was looking for some publications I wanted to share. So of course, writers have drawers full of pens. And I filled this bag, it's the friendly stranger, but I filled this bag filled with pens. And if you need them to write with or just have, please take as many pens as you want. That was really helpful. But how's my time? Am I good? We're still moving? Singing and swinging and being merry like Christmas?
Yeah, we started a little bit late, so.
Okay. Okay. Years and years and years ago, I'd gone to this salon. It was in this apartment over by Dover Court in DuPont. And you probably even know the building, it might still be there. And it was a launch for a book. And the book was no bigger than this. And it was by an artist named Arella Vent. You probably have heard of Arella Vent. They've been around for as long as I've been around. And now they're working at OCAD as an artist and writer. They've been there forever. But I'm there thinking I'm at a book launch, and all of a sudden I'm looking at this little thing that, I mean, we're all here for this? There's one thing you don't forget, and that's what delights you. There's a reason I still have many of these things that I still have, because I remember how they delighted me. And where is yourself to be found? Always in the deepest enchantment you've experienced. And that is still what I look for. So what you think about in terms of a book or a launch or a fixed idea of what you think that should be, or whatever you think that is, consider what is going to be remembered. When people send me material to KFB, I said, give me something I want to return to. Give me something that that brings me full stop. Give me something that I don't have to think about. Give me something I don't want to put down. So that can be in many, many forms. And if you don't have something published yet, please consider other forms. Because I'd much rather be receiving this from you than a business card. Here's another example. I direct the Fertile Festival, which is new and inventive works in poetry. It was recently at Dundas, Ontario, which is also fucking happening at the Printed Word Bookshop. And this is a little pamphlet called, these chaplets used to be called poetry pamphlets. And this is a little pamphlet put out by Apartment 9 Press, who's celebrating their 15th anniversary. And Joe Yanni did this. And it's just 2 words on every page. 2 little folding pages, but they're very, the paper's lovely to touch. And then in the back, it says, published by Apartment 9 Press in an unnumbered edition of 120 copies on the occasion of Knife Foot Books Fertile Festival of New and Inventive Works. On this date, at this place, these poems were previously published in the Ex-Puritan. But let me tell you what it was like to be there and have this you can only get it there in that time, and you don't forget that. It's something to cherish, something that's remembered. That to me is going to stay with me far more than what I call gay male of a certain age collection on my wall. Oh, one of those are treasures too. Here's another example. I have a friend, Ralph Kalede, who whenever he does a reading, he'll actually create a pamphlet of what it is that he's reading that day or that evening and mark the date and gift it to people who ask. So it's a lovely way of also saying, like I used to put up a set list of my own reading online. I go, here's what I read this time. So, but here's a lovely thing, like if you don't have a book yet, you can put together a working and change it all the time. And this week has maybe 3 or 4 poems in it. And again, readily, easily producible and made. And I'll just share a few more things. So we'll take questions. How's that?
Yeah, we gotta wrap up soon.
Right.
We're gonna have questions.
Great. How many of you know John Elizabeth Stincy? Real popular author, poet that wrote June Bat, My Volcano. Okay. Well, we published their first book called The Machete Tourist. And the reason I'm bringing this up is how this came into being. Years and years ago, when blogs first arrived, I came across Stincy's blog. And he was just a farm boy in Northwest Yale, Ontario. And in his blog, he said, when you adore somebody, let them know. So I wrote, John Elizabeth Stincy, I adore you. And that was that. Years later, I see them on Twitter. Do you know of anybody who will look at my stuff? I'm having a hard time getting my stuff, you know. And I said, John, I'm curious, send me some stuff. And the next thing you know, we're putting out their very, very first chapbook, The Machete Tourist. And it happened because he said, when you adore someone, let them know. That exchange, never underestimate kindness, never underestimate tenderness. And I know everybody loves freebies. So this is my card. It's done by artist Billy Mavris in Montreal. It's published by Knife Work Book, and it's called Tenderness. And everybody gets some tenderness to see. I'll take questions, wondering, are you gonna facilitate questions for me, Diane?
Yes, hi. Yeah, so now we'll take some questions for Kirby. I do have a microphone here. So if you have a question, I'll run it over to you. I know some people like to be like, I'm loud, but we have people online, so it's really better if you use the microphone. So do we have questions for Kirby?
Question, I'll answer anything.
When people,
It's like an AMA. Okay,
when
When people are sending in work to you, how many pieces do you normally, like, especially for poetry, how many pieces do you normally like to receive to get a
Three.
good idea?
Three. I know in 3.
Okay, thank you.
wow, simple questions and answer, I like that. No. Question?
Anything else?
Yeah.
Kirby, what moves you in poetry?
When it can only happen in poetry. Okay, kind of like film. I don't want just a document of a film. Or the meaning, you know, the film Love is the Devil. That Derek Jacobi plays Francis Bacon. Brilliant film, if you haven't seen it, brilliant movie. That can only be a film. So I'm interested in there's a certain, I would say, minimal elegance that makes my mouth happy when I read it. Does that help?
Yeah.
Does that mean that when you read poetry, you always read it out loud?
I read it out loud and I read it at least 3 separate times before like making any decisions on stuff, because I could be having a fucking shit day and think this is a piece of shit, when in fact, fucking brilliant. So, you know, it depends on where you're at when you're reading in that moment. So, be enormously graceful with yourself regarding your work, meaning, please choose the feather duster, not the machete. Okay, you're already doing the work. So you don't need to like pack yourself over it. And it's always interesting, like when I written, this is where I get off, very, very brazenly sexual fun. And I thought, oh, no one's gonna go near this, no one's gonna touch this. And here's one last thing I can share. It's so important to have a best friend in poetry. I learned that from Ami Cole. Ashbury and John Ashbury and James Schuyler were intimately best friends. They lived together in Hell's Kitchen. It's so important because that's the best friend that is not going to allow you to harm yourself in the process or others to harm you. That's super important. I would say, in particular in Toronto. What else?
Questions? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being.
And then we'll leave them here, friendly stranger.
So, now that we're reaching the world through our very own, like not have both of them on at the same time, right? Or I'm still see me, I'm hearing buzz, you're okay? Okay. Now that we're reaching the world through our very own YouTube channel, we need your help to make us show up in the algorithm. So, please like and subscribe to our channel. We'd really like it. If you would like, you know, And when you're on the subway going home, maybe get on your phone, get it out now, find us all of our past videos, like just like every one of our past shows. Don't have to watch it or watch it. And then subscribe to our channel. That will really help us show up in people's feed and be like, oh, I want to watch a literary thing. We also would love your money. So we do usually pass around a picture. There's less cash on people these days, so we do also have a PayPal. So you can find the PayPal link on our website, but it's also just like, what is it, Nancy? Our PayPal.
What is her?
Yeah, it's PayPal. It's PayPal. Find us on PayPal and give us money that way. All of our money goes to pay our amazing authors and guest speakers because we really believe in paying people fairly for the labor that they do. Which is unfortunately not that common in the world that we live in. And now for our readers. Again, for those of you watching live at home, please type in your questions into the chat as you have them, and then when all the readers are done, we'll bring them back up for a Q&A. So first up, Jeffrey Douglas is a 2023 graduate of the University of Toronto CSC Creative Writing Program. Oh, big love here for Jeffrey. His poems were published in issue 13 of the Thames Review. He's currently working on a memoir about rediscovering self after disassociation through trauma.
No, I was gonna measure your height first.
Second,
There,
are we on?
yes.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. This is incredible for me. I am the unpublished writer here tonight, and I am honored and very thankful and very grateful for this opportunity. I am, as Dorian said, I am a recent graduate of U of T's continuing ed program in creative writing. And although it's not that I just discovered writing late in my life, I wrote quite a lot when I was young, and I fell into a career, I think, in as much for reasons to you know, find a job that my parents would approve of, and I would do well in, and I fell into a career, and I think that through all of that, what I've learned is there's a great deal of joy and a great deal of satisfaction with that, but I was still missing something. So my thinking in reconnecting with writing, and certainly through my friend David, who's here tonight, he heard some of the things that I had written, and he had suggested that maybe we get together with somebody, and it was an editor, and she had suggested I pursue education. So I think I love poetry because I find it's an opportunity to express the inexpressible, or to paint with words. And I also love the efficiency and the tightness of it. So it has to be just the right word. So my work tends to be quite precise. I would say that it's like architecture, and I make each poem like a little story. The first poem I'd like to share with you is about a photograph. It's like the one that I saw recently in one of my mom's photo albums. I was sweet and young and innocent. And it was before all the trouble I caused through becoming a gay person and through coming out, which was even more difficult. It was very difficult for my mom and my dad, but more particularly for my mom, I think. It's interesting because I think in the photograph, it's as if it held something for her. It held for her the promise or the hope that she had for me. And they have, photos have a way of keeping a memory alive. And so this poem is called Capture. It's how I felt looking at the picture as an adult. The distance is, in the poem, is intentional. And the words in the writing of the drift across the page, like breath, sometimes flowing and sometimes held. Capture. This is a picture of you inside you remaining. Behind a glossy coat, just a boy shut inside a moment. The past, captured memory, held. Beheld and pressed in a frame, feeling invisible. This is a picture of you outside you, no longer a boy reflected in nostalgia. Your eye is the lens, your mouth the secret, your ear the wish. Once captured, then released, past forever present, because the body holds fragments like shards of glass, transparent, easy, and lethal. in this picture is a picture of you. Now, my mom and I survived the middle years. We survived the difficulty I think that she and I both had with each other, and I think found love and acceptance after all of that. My dad was a little bit more silent about all of this. I think he worried about me in his own way, but we never really talked about it. In this next poem, I am 13 years old in 1978, and I thought I was secretly gay, but apparently everybody knew. And no one ever talked about it because no one ever talked about things in the 1970s. It was something that I think my dad struggled with. He tried, but he didn't have the language. And since he passed away in 2019, I've been speaking with his sister and looking more into family history. And I believe that he was swallowed about what I now recognize about as his own trauma. But here, I think at this camping trip, we arrived wounded, but also in understanding. Canoe trip with Dad. I was not weak. I blamed the wind, my paddle rage dipped, boiled the icy blackness, boiled like a memory. You said the wind is a bully, whipping lake skin into white knives. The canoe cut to shreds. Sliced secrets and severed tongues, wordlessly persevered, then made light of the silence by a fire, built out of suffocating wood. Each of us made the effort to avoid going under. That's about my dad. But it's yeah, and thank you. And honestly, at the time of his passing, so much had changed, so this is really about a sort of a moment of that time, and the anger that I felt at my own sense of failure in respect to my father, trying to cross the lake, trying to do something that was manly, masculine, strong. It was really a powerful moment. So I have a couple of love poems that I'd like to share right now. The first one is a glossa, and for those of you who don't know what a glossa is, it's a poetic form that uses 4 lines from another poet's work. And what you do is you write 4 stanzas, ending each stanza with one of the lines from that other poet's work. So you write into their work, and I really love it because it's for me, it's like a call and response conversation with past poets, and it's a way to reflect on an emotional theme or an idea, past to present. This one is from a series I've been working on of glossas to gay writers from the past. Here, like a letter to Frank O'Hara, I explored the expression of love in a digital world based on 4 lines from his 1950s poem, love poem, To You. These are his 4 lines. And valleys full of sweaty ferns, breathing and lifting into the clouds, which have actually come low as a blanket of aspirations blue. From To You by Frank O'Hara. To Frank. Gay night, please stay and never age. The thought of dawn makes me want to wipe the sleep from my eyes and pull this blanket over our heads for another 60 years. So much has changed since you last wrote. A date these days is just a bait to hook the hookup. Love is a rock that's pushed around through blinded forests and blinding fields and valleys full of sweaty ferns. Or muscular mountaintops, just there for a rippling good view. But is it really all that hard? The love we crave, our mothers crocheted in gossipy groups and twisted yarns. You see, there's so much now at the internet buffet. I fear our loop will catch, unravel, and fray. Because we want what's rare, with all the coupling, uncoupling going on these days, to wander into quixotic dreams, breathing and lifting into the clouds, building brittle castles in the sky. And if they fell, they would surely break into a million possibilities. You once said, each time my heart is broken, it makes me feel more adventurous. Like an echo, this is beginning to sound familiar. Every swollen promise tips the scale in favor of defenseless white picket fences. Expectations lift as hopeful as hemlines in spring, which have actually come low this season, reflecting a trend into false modesty, preventing a truthful vulnerability from settling into technologies, addictive swiping, swaying, cologne-tinged in darkened rooms. I fell asleep again, my phone on my chest. Come, let's escape this blindness, look up, blinking into the sky, and cover the wandering eye as a blanket of aspirations blue. And here's another aspect of love in the 21st century. It's called raccoon. You scratch at my door for a place to rest, a 6 a.m. smudge after a wild night out. Coarse hairs, slicked back thick, patted down, respectable, itchy mustache, that smile. Hello. Not quite a bear, more fastidious, sharp, and cunning. Your persistent gaze and well-oiled charm moved into me and stayed. Feral instincts twist and fade in the hard shadows, inhabit lumbering bones and bite at the lip of the languid urban forest. This one is quite light. This one's fun. This is about, because I like coffee, and so this is about drinking coffee and waiting in line at a certain coffee shop. It's called a tall vanilla soy latte. So this tall vanilla soy latte waits in line at Starbucks during rush hour one morning behind a seriously hot venti mocha no foam quad, and she thinks to herself, if it was soy or even oat, she would totally go out with him. When she is accidentally bumped from behind by a short double espresso who rushed in behind her, along with a skinny caramel brulee frappuccino, a living contradiction of terms in her opinion. And that's when the barista called out, oat venti mocha no foam quad and a tall vanilla soy latte. He turns to give her a little smile within a second for her to think as they're whisked up and carried out into the morning sun. This is one that I wrote about my younger sister who passed away at the age of 38. She drowned, and she drowned in a very unusual way. She drowned in her hot tub in her backyard, and it can happen. And I wonder, you know, to this day, how and why. But I also think to myself, I'd like to think that it was peaceful, that it was quiet. So I wrote this called She Slips. Out here, golden breeze paints hypnotic strokes that lit the sandy lips of the sea. Seagulls sweep, whispering cerulean sheets over distant waving poplar greens. Silvery turns now look away. Her languid drift, and drifting sounds slip in, slip out. Her head tilts up to gaze into a brittle sky, reflecting glassy-eyed and tilt again. Then back, then forth, then back and forth to take in air between dips and slips and slipping deep into her endless azure. And one last one. Okay, now we have time? Good. Someone the other day used the word behooved and I thought words that start with B, bedazzled and bespattered. And I thought to myself, that's funny. And so I thought I would write something quite funny about that. It's a fable, you can call it a fable. Beautiful, bejeweled, and beleaguered Belinda behooved to be quiver in bed beneath the bewhiskered, beblemished, and besotted betrothed Bernard. At the behest of the besmirched and bitterly bedeviled uncle Baron von Behemoth, beholding her to beget again an ill-begotten booty. Behave, else be beheaded beneath a quivering blade, leaving behind a betrayed, bewildered Bernard.
So thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you to Brockton Writing Series, to you,
Everybody, all my friends who have come tonight, my goodness, my writing group as well, Risha. And so thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Jeffrey. Thanks for kicking it off for us.
Hello. Hello? Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me? Okay, great. I didn't hear the introduction, but thank you for introduction. My name is Lily Soltani, and this is my book, Zolekha. My novel is about a woman unraveling the mystery of her missing brother in the midst of the aftermath of a revolution and during a war. A lot of my novel is about the setting and the location. A little bit more detail. It's a tropical island port, and it has palm trees, Persian Gulf waters, and all that landscape. This is a story about Iran, but a part of Iran that may not be known to the West. So to give you a background about the location and as well as the name Zolekha, I first read a little bit about these from the preface. So the name of the province is Khuzestan, and my birthplace, Abadan, is the city. Khuzestan, the site of much of Iran's oil reserves, is the most strategically important province in the south of Iran. Like many other provinces, Khuzestan is multi-ethnic. Arabs and Lurs comprise the primary workforce. Khuzestan's proximity to Arab countries and its long shared history with Iran give the culture its unique flavor. In addition to Arab and Persian influences, Khuzestan is also influenced by the British, who discovered the oil reserves at the beginning of the 20th century. Imitating British suburbs in the heart of tropical Abadan, the British designed the architecture for the national oil companies, senior staff, living quarters, and built beautiful, fully furnished houses in some neighborhoods, complete with patios in their backyards. Many oil company workers and other citizens lived in a long boulevard with numbered bus stops, which stretched from stop 1 to 12. The British and later on the Americans worked for the National Oil Company of Iran as consultants and senior staff. And with the 1979 revolution, they left. A year after the revolution, Iraqi forces invaded Iran. Saddam Hussein's main objective was to capture Khuzestan from 1980 to 1988. Iran was a war zone with most fighting concentrated in Khuzestan. Khorramshahr, Abadan's twin city, was invaded first. When the war ended, it had claimed the lives of approximately 1 million people, with more significant losses in Khuzestan. The name Zolekha is a figure most likely known in the Middle East and Africa. It was the name of, because the origin of name is actually Egypt. It's the name of the exotic and sensual wife of Potiphar, Pharaoh's guard. And her obsessive story, love story with Yusuf or Joseph is mentioned in Quran and Torah. And there are lots of poetry written about her love for Joseph. One of them is by Persian poet Jami from 14th century, a book of poetry named Yusuf and Zulaikha. But my Zulaikha is actually my cousin's name. And she was the main inspiration for me to write this novel. And like Kirby said, I had a lot of thought of what would my family think when they read this novel as well. For my reading, I chose to read from part 1, 2 airports, which somehow relates to the aftermath of September 11 attacks. And because this day changed so many things, and mostly the travel and security protocols. My novel, Zulaikha, starts in December 2007, when Zulaikha, the protagonist, is returning home after visiting her son, who lives now in the Netherlands. He has dropped her off, and now she is alone at this strange foreign airport, not knowing the language and feeling lost. For years, she has given up, or even given up the hope and also anticipation for finding her brother Hassan. But suddenly, she runs into someone from her past. His name is Kia. He's going to Iran to attend his father's funeral. And this encounter and the conversation between them make her think about that this man, Kia, their old family friend, may know something about whereabouts of her missing brother. So this part that I'm going to read is about when they have recognized each other and they have done the basic greetings. A few drops of sweat cooled her forehead. She rummaged through her purse and opened the Ziploc bag. She used her passport and paperwork as a fan. So your mother remarried? Kia asked. Yes, she did. And she's well? She passed away a few years ago, and her husband was killed in a car accident long before that. Oh, I'm sorry. He was louder than before. You've gone through a lot. Silence reigned for a time. She was searching for a short sentence that did not sound like whining, words sharp enough to express that it did not matter anymore. Something like, you left, but life did not stop. Or while you were away, so much happened to all of us, not just me, but to your friends too. Instead, she said, yes, a lot is an understatement. Did you hear what happened to my brother Hassan or his friend Abbas? Kia stared at her for a few seconds. I did. He looked at his watch again. I'm very sorry about all of it. They continued walking side by side and stopped at their gate. My father wrote to me about Hassan and his disappearance, about Abbas too. Kia said, it was devastating for me. I always wanted to know how you and your family coped with it. I knew how close you were, but you know how it was back then. He stared at the flight display. My father wrote to me about people as if he read my mind and knew what I wanted to hear. He wrote to me that you were married too. Perhaps it was Jamshid's guilty conscience writing those letters before that fateful night almost 40 years ago. When Jamshid knocked on their door in Abadan, Zulekha had always respected him. He was a senior National Oil Company staff member. He always wore a black tie and white shirt, but that night he wasn't wearing a tie. He was wearing brown lorry attire. Perhaps looking cozier would help manipulate his subordinates. That night he told Zulekha's mother that he had a proposition for them, some proposition. Kia must have a first-class ticket and would separate from her soon. She would remain in her seat without thinking about him or the past, only planning for after her arrival, finding a taxi, sleeping, showering, and living her life. Kia, with his charm and politeness, and Jamshid, as a dead man, both seemed harmless, but what she remembered from them was far from harmless. She checked her bag for her inhaler one more time. They noticed the commotion at the departure gate beside them as a KLM airport worker made an announcement. Zulekha only understood the words flight and Tehran. She glanced at Kia. What did they say? Our flight was cancelled, he said. What's wrong with you? Do you have asthma? Yes, but it's under control. There was no point in telling him how she got her illness, the illness that had become a part of her identity. She followed Kia to the front desk of their gate, where the blonde woman from KLM was. All flights are cancelled due to security reasons. Kia translated it for Zulekha. My son will be worried about me if he doesn't hear from me tonight. This is a little bit of conversation between her and her son, and then later, when she returned the cell phone to Kia, a KLM employee gave all passengers directions for a shuttle to a hotel. Zulekha followed Kia and the others, in part feeling lucky that he was there like a relative or friend to tell her what to do or what they were saying. Another part of her was annoyed and uncomfortable that their closeness and had reasserted itself even decades later. But every moment she walked beside him, the pain he and his father had inadvertently caused her so long ago became closer, sharper. In the hotel lobby, Kia asked her about the room number. Let's have tea later this evening, he said. It's so strange to see you here today, right when I'm going to my father's funeral. Don't you think? He hung his coat on his carry-on bag's handle and didn't wait for her answer. I'll come to get you in a couple of hours. Maybe it's best you get home, get some rest. It will be very busy when you get home with your family and the funeral. She hung her handbag around her shoulder. It felt heavier than before. I know I wouldn't be able to sleep. It's been days since I've slept. I think this may be an opportunity for me to explain things to you a bit. Explain? She pressed the elevator button. Yes, about after I left Iran. She glanced at him. He was still handsome and charming. Remembering her younger self's infatuation with him felt funny. It was a long time ago. Do we have to? They entered the elevator, but this would finally give her a chance to ask him questions, not just about what happened between them, but what he heard about Hessam's disappearance. No, we don't. But I think, oh, this is my floor, Kyo says. Okay, I'll wait for you, Zolekha says. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Lily. Thank you all for the patience with the tech. It's very exciting that we live in this. The pandemic wasn't great, but it made us become more technological, right? So this is kind of a new ability, and I think it's wonderful for us to be able to reach across the entire country to be able to bring you Red Rose Life, Lily. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Kevin Craig, who has authored 8 novels. They mostly write young adult books for LGBTQ teens. Their latest is The Camino Club and Book of Dreams. They're published by Chicago Review Press. Kevin has had 12 short plays produced, and they have recorded memoir for CBC Radio 1. Kevin.
So much. I'm gonna read from 2 books tonight. Sorry. For Pride Must Be a Place, Ezra is meeting with Mark to discuss the Gay Straight Alliance group they're creating in their high school. But he has to get through Mark's father first. Hi, Jane. When I arrive, there's a tall, dark-haired man in the front garden. Well, more like salt and pepper hair. He's wearing rubber gloves and wielding a large pair of gardening shears. He's also wearing pink shorts and yellow flip-flops and a ratty yellow shirt. I open the gate of the white picket fence, let myself in, come up behind him and tap him on the shoulder. He pivots like he's going to kill whoever just tapped him. The instant panic of seeing him in attack mode with gardening shears is immediately gone as he actually sees me. His face breaks into the best smile ever. He takes out his earbuds. Which is when I realized I must have just scared the ever-loving crap out of him. Oops. I stand in front of him, attempting to look apologetic. I read the front of his t-shirt, which is stenciled, "Don't like it, lump it." Okay. Oh, hi, you must be Ezra. My God, but I love that name. I would have picked it for Mark, actually, but his dad is French Canadian, so you see, he had no leg to stand on there, don't you? He was going to be a Mark come hell or high water, but Ezra. I so would have called him Ezra if it were entirely up to me. Man reading should be man intensely alive. The book should be a ball of light in one's hand. Or, oh, this one. This one's relevant to what you guys are here for. Here you go. I think I know it. Speak against unconscious oppression. Speak against the tyranny of the unimaginative. Speak against bonds. Now that relates, don't you think, Ezra? I swear to God, he didn't breathe that whole time. I'm breathing heavy for him. I guess I'm also wearing a mask of confusion, but I put out my hand anyway. Oh, I'm sorry. Matthew's always telling me to come up for air, but frankly, life is too short for air. Oh, he sees my hand, drops the shears to the ground and takes it, and he starts to shake it. Gary. And I think I already surmised that you're Ezra, but not Pound. So I don't even know why I was quoting Ezra Pound to you. You probably have no clue who Ezra Pound even is, do you? Poor boy. But he is your namesake, so maybe you do. Kids today, though. I mean, do you even read poetry? Oh God, I hope you're Ezra. I was just assuming. I haven't even asked you. You could be anyone. What have you done? Yes, I am Ezra. I don't answer any of his other questions. He continues to vigorously shake my hand. I look at our hands in motion. He clues into my continued confusion and finally releases my hand. Come, please, you must ignore me. I apologize for going off like that, but you ever find yourself lost in the moment of doing a thing and your mind is working a mile a minute and you're not talking, but all the words want to come out just the same? And then some poor schmuck comes along into your orbit and becomes your next victim. Suddenly, you've spouted a novel and you're gasping for breath and they look at you like you're the most insane person on the planet. And all they want to do is get away from you. You poor boy, I'm so sorry to have made you that victim. It might surprise you, but you're not the first. Come, come. He walks toward the house and waves for me to follow. And I already know I love him. I have no idea what he's ranting about, but I don't care. He's this dude that is 100% who he is. He's just magical. So do you get Ezra Pound a lot? I'm thinking no, but I thought I'd ask. How do you know Mark? He's so private. I wish he'd tell us about what's going on outside his house, but you know, teenagers. Oops. Sorry, of course you do. You are one. But today I knew something had changed. He came home like he was surfing on heroin, all charged up and excited and whatnot about this club and this Ezra boy coming over to talk about it. He was lit up. So good to see you. Watch your step on that fourth riser. It's rickety like an old tooth. Matthew said he would fix it, but that was back in 2009. I'm hopeful, but not very optimistic. I skip the step and try to regulate my breathing again. I can't do this. His speed talking is leaving me breathless. Come, come, Gary says as he reaches the screen door and flings it open for me. I walk under the bridge he makes with his arm and enter the Arctic air of the climate-controlled house. Mark's in here somewhere. Mark! Coming, Dad, I hear from somewhere above me. I forgot to mention that Buttermilk Bay Road is probably the most exclusive neighborhood in our town. I've walked into a mansion, and somewhere deep within its walls is Mark Trombley. Shout again, Mark, Gary says. I'll have Ezra follow your voice. You don't mind following the voice, do you, Ezra? What's your name? What's your last name? Would we know your family? To myself, I think, absolutely not. You wouldn't. My dad and gays mix like all the things that don't mix. My parents wouldn't know anyone from this neighborhood. Kane. Nope, can't say I'm familiar with the Kanes, but Erica Kane. He waves his arms over his head and shrieks, but I'm Erica Kane, in a theatrical way. Now I am totally and utterly lost. Really, Dad, Erica Kane from All My Children, really? Are you trying to scare my friend away forever? You need to calm down, I'm telling Dad. Very funny, Mr. Man. Offer your friend some snacks, he's probably famished. He turns to me. Are you hungry, Ezra? Mark can get you a snack, or maybe I can whip up some nachos or something for you kids. Dad, Mark says, I'll take it from here. Seriously, stop scaring our guests. Your garden, remember how excited you were a few minutes ago to get out into your garden? Please, I got this. Be a good host, Mark, Gary says, all serious like it's a threat. Like he does not suffer that host well. I mean it. Dad. He puts a hand on his father's shoulder and Gary kind of snuggles his head into it, turns and kisses it. Wow, affection. It makes me want to cry. Okay, don't mind me, Ezra. I hope I'm forgiven. I know I'm too much. Not at all, Mr. Trombley, I say. Thank you. I smile, and the thing is, I really mean it. It's the most sincere smile I ever smiled. No, Ezra. Gary. Please call me Gary. Mr. Trombley is Matthew's father. It makes me feel old when people call me Mr. And don't even get me started with Sir. Sir is just another way of garden, Mark says. Yes, Gary says. Of course, garden. Why, just now I heard my shears calling me. He smiles. He is the coolest person I ever met in my life. I smile at him and then I turn to Mark and smile even brighter. Gary leaves and Mark brings me to the kitchen. Want a pot? We have Pepsi or Dr. Pepper. Dr. Pepper is my favorite. If he picks that, we were meant to be. I'll have a Dr. Pepper, I say. Please? Good choice. I was afraid you were going to say Pepsi. I'd have to turf you. Match made in heaven. All two boys need in common to live happily ever after is a mutual love for Dr. Pepper, right? Right? Okay, the second one is shorter. This is the communal club. It's like the breakfast club. Only it's a lot more diverse and it takes place on the Camino de Santiago in Spain. Oh, and Troy is one of 6 teens leaving for Spain to walk the Camino de Santiago as part of a youth diversion program. Troy is about to leave, but he has to get through his father first. Almost ready, where's mom? She's just walking Winston, he says. He's squirming a bit and I got a bad feeling. He has something to say to me and he's finding it difficult to begin. I sense a lecture coming on. I wanted some time alone with you anyway. I wanted to go over a few ground rules. Dad, I say, really? He's going to attempt to micromanage me from across the Atlantic? I made one mistake. You know I'm not stupid. I'm not gonna rob any banks while I'm there or beat up any old ladies. No, I have every faith in you, Troy. Seriously, I do. And in all honesty, I can't even be all that angry with you for what you did do to get to that place. I wanted to talk to you about, other stuff. My own father attempts to kill me with embarrassment. Out of nowhere, he pulls out a stack of condoms. It's an eerie and offensive display of magic. He allows the strip to unfold until it dangles a good 3 feet from his hand. Not just a couple of condoms for this guy. No. Troy St. Clair, in fact, needs a truckload of them. Oh my God. I have to put up with this sort of thing every day. My parents are off the charts and out of their trees. Dad, I say in my shrieky, I can't believe you're doing this to me voice. Oh my God, please put those away. No, your mother and I had a talk. We think it's only right that you pack protection for this trip. You never know what's going to happen, and you don't want to be caught without protection. They were bad enough before me. They were bad enough in the before I came out days. Now they're unbearable. All they talk about is safe sex and the fact that homosexuals can adopt. Talk about focus. Can I have a normal, don't want to talk about it parents like other gays? Dad, I began shoving my first aid kit into a side pocket in my backpack. I promise you, I will not need those. I refuse to take them. Can you please humor an old man? I've been there, young and foolish and on a road trip. It gets wild in Europe. Just take them. You don't have to use them. Just have them on you. It will make both your mother and I happy. You'll actually be saving me because you have no idea how happy it would make her to know that you're holding. Holding, really? How very drug culture of you. I shake my head and sigh, a sure sign of defeat. Ugh. Dad holds out the condoms, then folds them into a single pile before attempting to hand them to me. Just stick them in that pocket there, would you? If I don't have to touch them, it'll be less painful. Oh, Troy, you're like an old woman sometimes. I swear, they're just rubbers. Dad!
That was very amusing. Thank you so much, Kevin. I really enjoyed that personally. All right, everybody, we have our final reader for the evening. We have Hannah Mary McKinnon here tonight. So our internationally best-selling author, Hannah Mary McKinnon, was born in the UK, grew up in Switzerland, and now lives in Canada with her husband and 3 sons. Only one survives is her 9th novel. Please welcome Hannah Mary McKinnon.
That should work. You hear me in the back? Excellent. Thank you for inviting me tonight. This is really special because Nancy here, her blog Commuter Lit, was the first place where I ever had something published. A number of short stories, I think 5 or 6 or something like that, about 10 years ago, somewhere around there. Every time I did a Saturday workshop, invariably I'd have a short story, and Nancy almost always say yes. So she was my first yes in publishing, and here I am. This is book 9. 7 thrillers, 2 romantic comedies, with another romantic comedy soon and another thriller next year. So it's been quite busy. One of the things that I love about writing is that I get to explore stuff I know nothing about. So in thrillers, that would include murder, which is always fun to discover different ways and, you know, ask friends and family to act them out with me, you know, my husband lying on the floor and can I just see if I can stab you this way? That kind of stuff, or for this particular book, it was phoning a funeral home. And when I Googled, it's set in the Catskills, and I love the research part because I get to talk to people and I'm not exactly shy. So I found a funeral home in the Catskills and called them, and the victim, a gentleman who picked up, I said, hi, my name's Hannah Mary McKinnon and I'm a crime author. Honest, this is my website and I have a couple of weird questions. Well, one really, which is, I'd like to talk to you about where I could hide a spare body at a graveyard. And he said, oh, this is really interesting, tell me more. And so our solution is in the book. Spoiler alert, it's in a grave that's already been dug. Dig a little bit deeper, put the soil under the faux grass, put the body in there, cover it back up again. Ta-da! They'll never find them. You never heard that from me. Just saying. So this story, talking about writing about things that I know nothing about, is the rise and very violent and bloody demise of the fictional all-female pop rock group called the Bittersweet. When, after a fatal road accident, one of the members decides the band is now worth more dead than alive. So I knew nothing about the music industry, which is where the fun is, going to find out about that. And one of my best friends from, oh gosh, 40 years ago, is a band manager. And he actually has a role in the book, Roger Kent. That's not his name is Roger Brockton from Switzerland, but Roger Kent is the band manager in the book. But I'm going to read you the opening pages of Only One Survives. And now you're all blurry because I can see the book, but not you. That's very disconcerting. So this is 42 days after the accident. Music lovers. I've guzzled 3 vats of coffee in record time. Could be why my mind's racing faster than a cheetah on steroids, but it's more likely from the shock of what went down with the Bittersweet today. After failing to process the news, I came here to write a blog post. It was either this or a bottle of gin. To be honest, I'm not sure either will help make sense of it all. If you've seen my recent posts, listened to my radio show What's on NYC, or visited my social media, you'll know I adore the Bittersweet. And you'll have read about my devastation after what happened to the band last month. Their accident was such an incredible, tragic loss. Since they rocked their way into my world last year, I've played Sweet Spot 1 million times on air, in my car, and while jogging through my neighborhood. Spotify's profitability probably doubled because of me. I've said this before and it merits repeating. It was time another all-female pop rock group hit the scene. The Bittersweet, aka Vienna Taylor, Madison Pierce, Isabel Riotto, and sisters Gabby and Evelina Sevillano were the perfect blend of powerful women who sang, played instruments, and wrote their own tracks. In short, they were kick-ass. They once told me their sound was influenced by Blondie, the Bangles, Lenny Kravitz, Elastica, Lush, Oasis, Pink, Prince, the Go-Go's, and the more recent band, The Beaches. Brackets, not to Toronto. But trust me when I say they were on their way to becoming legends in their own right. I caught one of the Bittersweet's show last week. Yeah, I've raved about it multiple times, so I won't wax lyrical, if you'll pardon the pun, but it was easily in the top 10 best concerts I've seen. The quality of their live performance and their showwomanship were off the charts, more like a band that had played together for a decade, not a little over a year. They came into the audience afterwards and walked through the crowd, taking selfies and signing every single autograph request until there were no more. Down to earth and friendly, totally approachable. After watching them interact with each other and having interviewed them on my show, the best way to describe their relationship is united. They gelled, you know? You could tell this band would go the distance. I'd have bet anything they'd be around for decades. Thousands of us were heartbroken when the news broke about their car crash. Few details emerged at first, although we soon learned that after the single vehicle accident on an isolated stretch of road in the Catskills, they'd been stranded overnight at an abandoned cabin during a major snowstorm. Next came a report of fatalities. The fans, myself included, were freaking out, speculating about who had perished. Finally, the cops released pictures of Vienna and confirmed another person who'd been travelling with the Bittersweet had also survived. With the heaviest of hearts, we concluded Isabel, Gabby, Evelina, and Madison had died, until the cops confirmed Madison was, and to this day still is, missing. The police remained tight-lipped about the details, so naturally the whispers started. Words like crime scene, perpetrator, and investigations, as in plural, got thrown around. I figured it was nonsense, clickbait for the gullible. No crime had been committed. I felt certain the accident would be ruled exactly that, an accident, after which we'd mourn the demise of one of the most exciting up-and-coming all-female bands in recent history. Seems I was wrong. In case you missed it this morning, Vienna was approached by the police at a public memorial service for Gabby and Evelina in Queens, taken in for questioning about their deaths. You read it right, and in this instance, I'm not the only one who thinks deaths is synonymous with murders. I was at the church hall, along with hundreds of other gatherers, and we all had dazed and confused expressions on our faces. Couldn't believe it. Thought it was some kind of mistake. Yet, sure enough, Vienna got into the cruiser and they drove off. But wait, there's more. Apparently, Vienna might be a suspect in Madison's disappearance. Can't believe I wrote those words. I mean, WTF. Now, it might all be nothing but rumours and speculation. The cops to show up outside the church in front of all of us and the press and whisk a startled-looking Vienna away. We all know the saying about no smoke without fire. There's got to be substance there for them to risk doing this, but what? In any case, whoever hadn't heard of the Bittersweet before certainly has now. This morning's soundbite of Vienna insisting she's innocent has been viewed thousands of times already. Holy crap, I hope she's telling the truth, because not only do I love the Bittersweet, but candidly, I've been hashtag Team Vienna from the start. She's cool, has this I don't give a shit what you think about me vibe, and her drumming skills are off the charts. It's like she's Meg White, Karen Carpenter, Sheila E. and Cindy Blackman rolled into one. Read my prior best drummers of all time post if you don't know who I'm talking about. Plus, she writes the Bittersweet songs. It might sound absurd, but someone so brilliantly talented can't be guilty of murder, can they? Multiple murders. Could Vienna have hurt her girls? Where the hell is Madison? It's been weeks since the accident and there's no sign of her. Is she hiding? If so, why? When she could exonerate Vienna by showing up. Unless Madison fled because she's the guilty one. Or they're in this together. After all, they've been best friends since high school. As I said, my mind's spinning. Tell me your theory about what went on in the Catskills. Could Vienna be a killer? What about Madison? Got another theory? Leave a comment, and if you hear anything, message me. We need to get to the bottom of the Bittersweet tragedy. Stay tuned. Melody at Musical Melody J. Comments. 1246. I won't read them all. They're not all in there, I'm just joking. Meanwhile, the whole book's just kind of showing most recent. I'll just read a couple. Susie_Jessica_hugs. Hashtag Team Vienna. No chance. She's 100% guilty. Bellybean56. Agree. Whatever kicked off the bittersweet shitstorm, I'll bet it brewed for years, way before the cabin, which was creepy AF, by the way. What was that? The Shining Part 2? CG_Sunshine21. I want the entire story, right from the beginning when Madison and Vienna met. What's north? Everything. Susie_Jessica_hugs. Hell yeah. Someone get on it already.
If we can have you and Jeffrey and Kevin come up for the author reader Q&A. Cheers. All right, who's got questions for our awesome authors?
Oh, we got the chairs out.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Yes. It always takes a minute.
I just noticed that you were reading from very early in your book, so I'm just curious how you were sustaining the suspense through the next 250 pages.
So I outline my thrillers, and so I think about all of the plot, not all of the plot points, that would be ridiculous, I might as well write the whole thing. But I think about the various beats, and I try and end every chapter on a mini cliffhanger. Basically, my rule is give people a reason to not turn the page. So I really think about, well, where's the conflict? What do people want? What do they need? How can I stop them from getting what they want or need? How can I mess up what they want or need? And really try and gosh, dare I say, mess with my characters to the point where people hopefully get invested in them. So I do spend a lot of time thinking about that. It's an excellent question and not a straightforward answer.
This is the reason I didn't get enough sleep when I was reading that book of yours. Why don't we expand it though? Like, because the general concept applies to all writing, right? Like, what do you do consciously to maintain your reader's interest, to keep them reading?
Poems are short, so it's a lot easier. And there is still a great deal of outline. There's still a great deal of thinking about a sense of a sustained emotion and a feeling and a connection that you can derive from what's written. So I think that's how you know, whether you capture the attention early or whether that builds, those are two different ways of doing that.
Jade will know this one. Jade and I do a yearly Muskoka novel marathon every July up in Huntsville. We write for 72 hours and we each try to write a novel. So when I'm writing my story, I'm not thinking about what the reader is going to get out of it. I'm thinking about what happens next for me, because I don't plot or plan. I start at the beginning of that weekend, 72 hours. I start with the title, I just jump off it. And I just do what if, and answer those questions for myself, because I want to know what happened. And I'm writing it really fast like that, so it's me I have to keep entertained.
That's really interesting. Lily?
Hi. So the question is about how I keep the writers interested. That's the readers.
What do you do?
What do you do to, that made it worse.
Okay, so there are so many things, like,
So what do you do consciously in the writing process to keep the reader engaged, to make sure that reader is engaged and interested and wants to keep reading?
I think that my focus on dialogues are the main thing for me. Like just to give you a short answer. During the writing, I do a first draft first, but when I do the next drafts, I do a very detailed outline of about the conflicts, the mystery, resolving the mystery, and all that as I go through the chapter by chapter.
Any other questions? Are there any online, Kim?
No one online.
Okay. I want to ask a little bit about the approach to characterization. Because I noticed that like Gary was super cringe. And I'm like, how do you, but what also adorable, and it just made me think like that's such a specific character. And then also like the blog poster, I'm like, oh, like I feel like I know that I feel like I know that woman. And she's young and she's like, yeah. How do you approach character development?
Using Gary as an example, I brought him into the story because I wanted past career experiences to come into the story because it's the story of teens creating gay straight alliance, and they're homophobic basically country high school. So I used Gary. He came into it later on as a character who would tell what it was like in the 70s to be a teenager and how we've come so far, but not far enough. So I used his lived experience, which was when I was a teenager in the 70s. So I used him to bring the queer story forward.
I spend an awful lot of time thinking about my characters before I start writing. So, I mean, you know, sit down and write chapter one and then continue. So I actually interview my characters, which sounds really bizarre. But I have a 3-page questionnaire that I put, not all of them, I mean, that would be way too much procrastination, but the main ones, yeah. So I have things on there, you know, what do they look like, and what's their name, where do they go to school or whatever. But then I have really quite fun and strange and bizarre questions. For example, do they believe in ghosts, or have they seen a dead body? How much money have they got in the bank account? If they inherited 10 grand, what would they do with it? When have they been their happiest, their saddest? What's their favorite joke? Who told it to them? What is it? Need to know what the joke is. And that allows me 2 things, 3, 1, procrastinate. Oh, actually, plotting the book really. But it allows me to make sure the characters aren't the same. You know, that they don't all sound the same, look the same background, same whatever. And it also allows me to really understand who they are when I walk them on the first time into the book. How have they become the person that they are when they show up in chapter 1 or 3 or whatever it is? So I'll do that for the band. There are 5 bandmates and a documentarian. So I have 6. I did 6 interviews. Not for the blog post, because she has two posts, and her voice was it was just there. But for the other ones, I wanted to make sure that they're not all the same. So that's how I think about my characters. I talk to them as well, which is always, but check out the shower. They show up. I mean, it's rude. Seriously.
That's really cool. All that shows up for me in the shower is songs from the 90s. I might steal that. I think that is a great idea, interviewing your characters.
I can send you my interview form. Yeah, you can share that with whomever.
Oh. Lily, what about you? How do you approach creating characters that are people, that are not you, that are separate people, that have lives and are living and breathing and on the page.
Yeah, so they're like in my first there, I give birth to them in my brain, and then I list them, like the list of their names and their just like a ID, like birth certificate. I give them that year. And for a novel, right, like Zulekha, that is kind of a historical fiction through a lot of many years, like 40 years. I had to know them, the characters, as a child versus a teenager, and then and how like especially the main character, the protagonist, and also like how they grow and how they change through this time and these conflicts. So it's a lot of thinking, and there's a lot of writing and rewriting for this. There is a character in this book, the mother, Zulekha's mother, that everybody, like many readers, told me that, wow, this character was very interesting. And I didn't really mean to make her character really a good character. I wanted her to look like a villain, but everybody began to like her because she was very real. She was very real to them, and I put them in situations to deal with the very hard situations, and I wasn't nice enough to them. Like I was sometimes cruel to them too, as a writer.
So Jeffrey, I know maybe it's a bit different for you. You've got yourself, you've got your parents, but how do you approach characterizing them and yourself?
You know, you always do, but I would say that I think of character maybe as mood as well and feeling, because characterization, you characterize a moment, how you feel in that moment, and that's what I think about. You know, I think of language. I think about the way the words sort of lay in the page, and I think of the sounds that those words make, whether they're consonant or they're very soft sounds. You know, cerulean sheets. You know, there's a drifting with that, and so I think characterization is found through that. But as everyone was talking, I'm also working on memoir, which is the story of my grandfather, my father, and myself in terms of our family situation. And I think that when I approach that, I have actually looked to change the names of everybody and to ascribe characters to those names. And then I've written about 5 pages each for each person, a kind of character draft. Color of eyes, were they raised with religion? You know, did they have a dog when they were a child? What was the dog's name? There's a kind of a history that kind of goes along with that. Much of which, of course, in my instance is drawn from reality, but what it does is it actually characterizes them, people. And it gives also them a place within a story, because memoirs is not as interesting when it's maybe you know, plotting and sort of end this and then that, but where you have a story that kind of carries you forward in the writing of it. So having characters in place, and what is the motivation of that character, it really helps define motivation.
That's excellent, thank you. I'm assuming we've got no more questions. Last call for questions. Oh yeah.
This might be kind of a random question, but I was just thinking, what inspires you when you're writing in terms of like other art or media? So obviously, because you're writers, I imagine there's books that would inspire you, but even beyond that, like, is there music that inspires you or that you look to when you're writing, or visual art, or movies? Kirby was talking about movies earlier. I think that's just kind of like, I'm a musician as well, so I feel like there's different like elements of how art can intertwine with your creative work. So yeah, if you have anything to share about that.
I'm holding the thing. So yeah, the answer is yes, everything, really, in a way, everything. It's interesting, as I didn't say earlier, but I work as an interior designer. And the job of that is working with people to interpret themselves and their home and create a space that is meaning. And I think all space has emotion and feeling. I challenge them to come up with 3 words to describe the space in which they'd like to live. In emotional terms, meaning how do you want the space to make you feel? And I would say that I get a lot of inspiration from them, from their responses, from their ideas and how they see space. But I would also say that, you know, if I look out at, you know, the weather, and certainly you write a poem, certainly about rain, you know, snow, you know, certainly there's a lot that you can draw from that. And I think you're drawing from mood and feeling.
I love contacting musicians when I'm about to write a book. With Pride Must Be a Place, I called Lauren Segato and talked to her about her appearing in the book and what she would do, what I would have her doing in the book. And she very quickly put a kibosh on it, saying that I would never do that, I would never say that, but she let me use Rise Up lyrics in it, and I listened to Rise Up on repeat the whole time I wrote that book. And there was another book that I wrote where the last chapter was Gordon Lightfoot, a Gordon Lightfoot concert, and I got permission from him to use him as a character in the book, because I couldn't see it being anybody fictional. It had to be Gordon Lightfoot. So I got in touch with his manager, and they said, yeah, he read it, he loved the chapter. It sounded like things he would say and do, so they agreed to it. And every time I write a book, I pick a playlist of maybe 2 or 3 songs, and it's always 80s. I will never 80s punk and new wave, like that's forever my music, and I always write to that.
Can I ask a quick follow-up question?
Yeah, sure.
I could be so wrong with this, so I was thinking about this while you were reading, Kevin. So your book is called Pride Must Be the Place. Is that in any way associated with the Talking Heads song, This Must Be the Place? Or is that just coincidence?
I think I just like the way that sounded, but that is definitely a song on all my playlists. I love that song. But it just came out. He was happy in a moment. He said,
I don't typically listen to anything when I'm writing, because I can't. Maybe something vaguely chill out music from the kitchen, because if there's anything with lyrics, I get really distracted and I can't do it. But the exception was with Only One Survives. The band members skew a little bit younger than my typical protagonists. They meet in high school, and then it's 4 years following that. But I made them like 80s music because Gen X forever. And they were able to like, or they had to like what I like. So I was able to go back and listen to the music I used to listen to or still listen to. And I was able to, I think that probably helped me greatly get into the mindset of an early 20-year-old. Plus I have 3 sons who are 21 and 2 almost 20. So that helped too. But other things, you know, authors, some authors don't read in their genre when they're writing. I do. I find that really inspirational, not only in thrillers, but other stuff too. But inspiration can come from thinking about a photograph that I saw about this we're talking about mood, this moody beach. And I don't know why, but it just struck me. I thought that's going to be book 5 or something, I can't remember. And then I heard about a man from Toronto, a firefighter, who went missing from Lake Placid. This was in 2017, 18, 19, somewhere around there. And it was a ski hill, and he just disappeared. And everyone's freaking out, thinking he's freezing to death somewhere on the hill. And they found him 6 days later in Sacramento, of all places, he was from Toronto, skiing like passive with his family and friends. And somehow he'd ended up over there and he had amnesia. And he had no clue how he got them. And I married that picture with that story and turned it into a book. So they just worked. So I have, this is in, You Will Remember Me. A man wakes up on the beach, he has no idea where he is, why he's there, or who he is. And that came from this moody picture that just captured this sense of, you remember it? Yeah, he's fine. The firefighter from Toronto is okay. He was fine. But it was such an odd, such a peculiar story. He probably doesn't know he inspired the book. Maybe I should tell him, but I don't know.
Thank you. Okay, Lily, did you have anything? Did you hear the question?
Yes, actually, I like this question a lot. Because, well, poetry is my inspiration, always. During writing this novel for a long time, I have had a chance to translate a few pieces from Persian poets and used some pieces that were relevant. They really deeply inspired me as epigraphs in this novel. In addition to that, music, in a way that, as I mentioned in my introduction, I was introducing a location, Abadan, or a province that is very, very unfamiliar maybe for the readers. So it's, I think that when we are trying to introduce a culture or depict a culture, music and their lyrics and dance and all these are a part of it too. So I remember when I was a child and when we used to go to Khuzestan and Abadan, I remember the taxi drivers, the shops, they always played similar musics, mainly by like these Egyptians, classic musicians like Abdul Halim Hafiz, Kulthum. And these were all my memories and my inspiration, and I kept listening to them. And as I listened to them, I wrote this, not during, I'm like Hannah, I can't write with anything in the background, but when I was listening to them, they brought memories and also inspirations for me. So, and even the novel has a couple of theme songs that actually one of them is on the trailers, that book trailers. So music is a deep inspiration for me because of the history that I have, and also dance and drums. And one of my characters is also a musician.
I don't have a follow-up, but I think oh, yes, sorry. Yeah, thank you so much, Lily. Sorry, I got distracted, but that's okay. Thank you. I think it's really interesting to hear everyone's opinions. Thank you for indulging me in that. Did anyone have a final thing they want to jump in on? If not, we have a wrap-up question. Okay, we have one more quick question over here.
So I know Kevin has a blog that he posts often on. Does everyone else have social medias or following? And Kevin, you want to show out to yours too?
Yeah, mine is, you can find it at ktcraig.com, and I'm on the other sections too, just my.
Starting to build that. I've got an Instagram account, Jeffrey A. Douglas Writer. Because the middle initial is Alton, or A for Alton. So I'm not a blog or anything like that. I just got Instagram.
I have Facebook and Instagram mainly. Hannah Mary McKinnon website also, and a regularly irregular newsletter about once a quarter, because my life just isn't that interesting. So once a quarter is perfectly fine to tell you what I'm reading and watching and doing and whatnot, so, yeah. AnnaMaryMcKinnon.com.
Lily?
I'm on Facebook and also Instagram and occasionally X too. And yeah, so I have these social medias based on my name. I think my Instagram is public, but the other ones, Facebook is not. So you can just search for my name by name. Hopefully you can find me.
And we've instead everybody and tagged them, so if you look for Brockton writers, stuff like that.
That's just what I was gonna say.
Oh, and Kirby too.
Everyone is on our Instagram and also on our website, and if for some reason one of you hadn't sent me a social or you have another one you wanna add, you can just email me or let me know and we can add that to the website. But thank you all for sharing. So we have one final question that we like to ask all of our readers and guests, and that is, what are you reading right now, or are you reading / have you read something really good that you would like to share with everybody?
I just read You Are Here by David Nichols, who is one of my favorite authors. He's an English chap. He writes for film and TV. They just redid his series. There was a movie. Let me restart that. The book called One Day was made into a movie first with Anne Hathaway and now just recently a Netflix series. And because he writes so much for film and TV, his dialogue is just a masterclass. He's funny, he's wry, he's so great. And when I grow up, I want to be him. Please.
I have 6 books on the go right now, but I think the one I would choose to speak, yeah. Many books, but the one I would choose to speak about is Ways of Seeing by John Berger. I think his name is John. And it's a beautifully, almost philosophically written book about how we all perceive what we see and what we feel in the world, and how we see things and what our perceptions, what we bring to the table when we see and experience something. Very interesting book.
I really have a bad memory with titles. I've read several books lately that I loved. The one I loved the most was Nina Simone's Gum by Warren Ellis. And it's literally the story of a piece of chewing gum that he took from the stage that Nina Simone stuck to the stage. It is the best memoir I have ever read. The gum is.
Does it all?
Yeah.
So did I hear John Berger?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. I love John Berger.
Yes, amazing.
The Try to the Wedding, one of his novels that's so fascinating. It's one of my favorites.
We'll be hearing from Sydney Hegele. See, the thing is, when I'm reading the next ones, I don't get to do a pronunciation check the way I do when I'm here. Sadia Ansari, Moez Sarani, and Christina Wong and Daniel Ennis, who are a team. And as always, we'll be bringing in an industry professional to teach us something new about the craft or business of writing. Thank you so much to everybody here. Thank you to Glad Day, and see you in November.